All right, let's call to order this June 27th, 22 meeting, the Fredericksburg Area Metropolitan Planning Organization. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Play ball. Just so you all are aware, it's against the law for me to say the Pledge of Allegiance to the U.S. flag because I'm not yet a citizen. Technically, I'm a citizen of another country. So if I did say the Pledge of Allegiance, I'd be technically committing treason. So I hope you don't mind. As soon as you all make me a citizen, I'll gladly say the Pledge of Allegiance.
Duly noted. When is that?
Talk to the Department of...
All right. Time for roll call and determination of quorum.
From Spotsylvania County, Mr. Tim McLaughlin, Mr. Chris Diakabel.
Here.
Mr. David Ross.
Here.
Mr. Kevin Marshall. Ms. Deborah Frazier. Ms. Lori Hayes. From the City of Fredericksburg, Mr. Jason Graham.
Here.
Mr. Matt Kelly.
Here.
Jim Baruti. Mr. David.
Here.
From Stafford County, Ms. Meg Bomsky.
Here.
Ms. Monica Gary. Here. Ms. Crystal Banucci. Here. Ms. Pamela Young. Mr. Darrell English. From the Secretary of Transportation, Ms. Marcy Parker. Here. Ms. Michelle Strothmeyer. Here. And Potomac and Rappahannock Transportation Commission, Dr. Bob Schneider.
Here.
Mr. Joe Stansky.
Yes.
Quorum is ready.
Thank you. Next item is approval of the June 27th, 2022 Policy Committee agenda.
So moved.
Second.
There is a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Time for public involvement. Is anyone here from the public who would like to speak at this time? All right, do we have any written comments?
Yes, we just received one today, which will be a slight repeat for those of you who are at the GWRC meeting. But Margaret sent me her comments this morning. So she just wanted to state her, I'll just read it. Margaret Mock is 81 years old. She is a walker and walked in her neighborhood, North Ferry Farm, and nearby subdivisions for more than 30 years. Her walking partner is a neighbor, and they were here earlier today for the GWRC meeting. They walk about an hour each day. The subdivisions in and around Ferry Farm where they walk are lovely, but there's a major problem. They're dangerous. There are no sidewalks, there are no walking trails. They share the road with cars, trucks, school buses, and garbage trucks. So they're just stating their support for the Belmont Ferry Farm Trail, which would end at Chatham Bridge, but oh, that is ended. Sorry, I'm so sorry. Goodness gracious. She's here to request that you proceed with the original plan for the Belmont Ferry Farm Trail, and that's it. Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, let's move on to the consent agenda. Do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda? We have a motion. Do we have a second? Motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, motion carries. Next up, the FAMPO Administrator report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just got 11 slides for you tonight. Going to look at the future direction of FAMPO, policies and research and projects and delivery. Today is the end of the financial year. It's also the day that we elect our new office bearers for the forthcoming year. And believe it or not, at the 31st of October, I will have been here as your administrator for 2 years. Doesn't seem quite that long, but it's 2 years.
Who's getting retired?
So you all. So I thought I'd give a little answer to a question that over the 2 years, different folks have asked me, and that is, what do you want to achieve at FAMPO? not me personally, but what's your direction? What are you trying to do? And so I'm going to answer this question. I'm not going to give every little detail, just some broad level strokes. Top of the pile there, what am I aiming to do at FAMPO? I don't normally talk about me, but I'm going to just do this once. Develop a vision for FAMPO. We have a long-range transportation plan, we have a lot of good policies, but we don't have one vision that holds everything together. So let's develop a vision. Then develop policies to implement that vision. You all decide on those policies, that's why you call the policy committee, and that's one of your main functions, but develop the policy that fits with that vision. Then we conduct studies and surveys to identify projects to implement that vision and those policies, which you've all decided on. Then we I aim to source more federal, state, local, and sometimes private funding to implement that vision, because we can't implement it without money. And then foster cooperation among our stakeholders to implement that vision. I have to say, I've been hearing more and more in the last 6 months how people are impressed that FAMPO's mood and tone have changed and improved. People are really happy that FAMPO is working together. There's more regional cooperation than we had maybe 2 years ago, and that's a good sign. It means that we are actually making progress and good things. So fostering cooperation is one of the things I'm trying to do. Retain a staff complement to develop that process, and I'll say more about that in a moment, and then obviously work within the laws and regulations as the guardrails to implement that vision. We have to be mindful of things like FOIA and other legislation. Next slide. Is it frozen? That one, there we go. So the vision, the process is underway. We did a survey, and you will see some of the initial results today. Coley is going to present a summary for you so that you can see the summary of what all our FAMPO committees and participants think about FAMPO's vision in the questions that we asked. We're going to use the survey and research over 3 months to synthesize a vision document for you to discuss and hopefully approve with your changes and amendments and improvements. And then we want to match the policies to the vision. So, next slide. Policy. Now, we've decided on some policies already, and I'm working with some policies just to start the ball rolling. But when you finish that vision document, we can examine our policies and go, do they fit with the picture of the future that you all want to see? But for the moment, I've just 5 quick points. People generally want to travel. Our role is to facilitate efficient movement and encourage better choices and options for travel. We're not going to stop people traveling. That's not ever our goal. Our goal is to try and make the system more efficient and to facilitate the traveling that people want to do. Everyone driving alone in a car at the same time on a limited number of roads, together with all the freight traffic, is not a sustainable future. If every single person in Stafford, Spotsylvania, and the city of Fredericksburg, as well as our rural locations, Carolina, King George, all have a car and they all go to work at the same time in the morning, there is no way we'll be able to facilitate that movement. It will bog down. So we have to make policy choices to deal with that. So encourage multimodal options, changing development patterns, as in where do we build houses and factories and etc. Those are just 2 levers that we could use to achieve some better sustainable transportation in the future. There are other levers, and you all will make decisions about which ones you think are appropriate for our area. Then getting more out of existing infrastructure is far less expensive than building tons more infrastructure. I'm not against building infrastructure, and you'll see out of the East-West study, we're examining 13 roadways, and in some cases, we're going to want to build more infrastructure, and you'll have a list that you can decide on. But, for example, I believe that we could achieve better use of the US 1 highway. We call it a highway, but it doesn't behave like a highway because it's stop, start, stop, start, stop, start, and when we have a massive snowstorm or a truck goes vertical under one of the bridges in Stafford, everybody gets onto US 1 if they can, and what happens? It's a mess. So the asphalt is laid on US 1 already. We can make better use of it if we think about smart options to make better use of that, and that's one of the things we put in the letter to the Secretary for Transportation. When you approve that letter, you were effectively making 8 policy choices. You were saying, we want these 8 things. And they're all policies that should fit with our vision. We need a future-proof FAMPO by identifying, or the localities in FAMPO, by identifying future trends and adjusting to prepare for them. For example, electric vehicles. How is that going to change the way people move? Well, we need to think about that. And then modernizing transit and TDM networks in our region. We need to come and build future transit and TDM systems that work, that are fast, that are efficient. And so those are not all the policies of FAMPO. I'm just picking examples to show you what I mean by policies. And you will give me, over the next 3 months, what you think the vision should be, and then I'll work to align our policies with that vision and bring you policies to approve principles that we can build for the future transportation system. Next one. So, how do we find where the problems are? Studies and surveys. We've got the East-West study on the go. We've got the VCR Trail study on the go. We've got the Freight Summit coming with a report that we're going to generate there. We've talked about, and Dr. Schneider brought it to our attention, that we should perhaps do a short workshop on congestion. What causes congestion, how do you solve it, etc. And I put in the UPWP this year the opportunity for us to start a discussion on transit-oriented development. If you've got the train line, should we not put more development closer to the train line? Particularly for people who are going to work in North Virginia, rather than having them drive a long distance to the train station. Just something to think about. Next slide. Projects. So we've got a vision, we've got policies, we've got research and studies that result in projects. So the studies should result in projects, obviously. It's no point doing studies if they never produce anything. And I've heard criticism about that in the past, where we've got all these studies and some of them don't actually produce anything. Well, that's pointless. The studies need to produce bankable projects. Is that a term I can use in the US? Bankable projects? Yeah. So with a flood of new grants, we may be able to tackle some larger projects over the next 5 to 15 years. The Infrastructure and Jobs Act, whether you like it or hate it, it releases funds for big projects. We should prepare ourselves to take advantage where we can of those grants. There seems to be the interest at the moment in 1 or 2 mega projects in the future. What should those be? Where should they be? We'll discuss and develop those. But the studies and the research should result in projects that are bankable that we can actually implement. Next slide. As an example, this is just one example. We have many projects on the go, or studies on the go. This is a BPL Trail project. And the only reason I picked this one is because people don't realize how big it actually is. Just this section we're showing on this particular slide is more than 10 miles of existing and planned multi-use shared paths, bike paths, sidewalks, and so on. This is the portion of the VTR Trail that exists. There's the new Chatham Bridge, which exists. This is the section in Pennsylvania that exists. Then we get to the I-95, and this section here are in the Smart Scale application that you all approved last month. So if it's funded, we get this built, we get that built, and there's a small section over here, I think, which is in downtown Fredericksburg, where the 2 traffic circles, the infamous traffic circles that irritated people, well, they also connect a little piece of the VCR trails, and the city at BDOT are working on a bridge here over the Hazel Run to connect that. We have a study taking the next step, looking at the US 1 crossing, the Route 3 crossing, and how do we get this trail over the I-95, right? Because this already exists, and we've got the old rail trail right of way. These are sections where there are proppers and other things going on. This is Harrison Road in Spotsylvania County. With the East-West Mobility Study, one of the things they're looking at is how to connect this trail from the new bridge. You heard about it just now from the elderly lady that presented. Well, we're looking at this here, up towards Chatham Heights. How do we connect the trail further into
Very far.
yeah, well, Statman, really, because residences here and the shopping centers and so on. This already exists. That portion of the Ferry Farm Trail already exists, right? Do you see how big that is? It's a mega project. And each one of these little applications and bridges and structures forms part of that whole network. And there are other pieces. There's a potential smart-scale project which carries on down US 1, and Spotsylvania is also potentially looking at continuing it down Harrison Road. It builds what will become a tourist attraction. It's a very large integrated biking and pedestrian path that connects two counties and a city, right? That will be a big project if it's finished ever, and I'm not saying it will finally get there, but I'm trying. You take the policy, you take the infrastructure that's there, you try and maximize it and connect it all so that it creates a unified whole. That's just one example. We're going to do roadway projects, we're going to do transit projects, etc. as time goes on. And you will vote for all those pieces as you go along. You've been voting for them for years.
Yeah, so I know where you're going. I see what you're saying here. It's all great. But I just want to point out, the Belmont Ferry Farm Trail, we defunded that and pulled that whole project. So while there is area there to put the trail in, I don't want people to think that that is a project that is currently being funded, under construction. It's prime, in my mind, for the trail to be installed.
So a portion is already there, right? The first.
The blue section is already there.
The blue. This blue
area-
section already exists. I've walked on it.
Yes, but there.
Right now it exists on the
Okay,
ground.
then where's the Chatham Bridge?
Yeah.
Yeah, we're tied into the River Road section.
So VDOT's built.
Right.
VDOT built the connection from this end of the bridge onto that blue trail. It's already built.
Oh, that part, yeah, I mean, I walk that all the time.
Exactly.
Okay, I thought you meant,
Yeah, Ferry Farm is farther down the road and up.
yeah, okay.
I make no commitments on behalf of Stafford for other projects, right? I'm only talking about.
Right, but over here it says Belmont to Ferry Farm Trail, and we think of, it's really Belmont to Chatham right now.
Probably just a name difference.
Still called that.
It's still called.
Well, we hope it someday goes to Ferry.
Or alternatively, Stafford might wish to change the name. We make no
Right.
decisions of
Okay,
our
gotcha.
Stafford. All right. And this red spot is not going to be built unless Stafford decides they like it, right? We're going to put a proposal in front of you and see whether you like it. It's all up to you. As you know, FAMPO doesn't force things onto jurisdictions. We make proposals. Next one. Funding. So there's significant new and exciting projects, as I've said, in the Infrastructure and Jobs Act. We need a full complement of staff at FAMPO and our jurisdictions to take advantage of these grants. I would encourage you to make sure that your jurisdictions and VDOT and everybody else have the planners and the engineers and the other staff that we need. FAMPO can't tell you what to do. I'm trying to staff this organization. I encourage you all to work with your jurisdictions to staff your organization. Some of you are fully staffed, others of you have got vacancies that need filling. We need planners because who's going to write these grants? Who's going to know which are the right grants to apply for? Who's going to, the paperwork, everything else has got to be done. Takes work. We should aim at increasing transportation funding available for all modes for our region. And there's more and more funding becoming available. We should prepare for gap taxes to have a less significant role in the transportation funding. And you all will decide how we deal with that. Right? Cooperation. As I said, there's a much better spirit of cooperation at FAMPO in our committees and with our jurisdictions and local and state partners. We should build on this to achieve better project rollout. FAMPO staff continue to meet with stakeholders to achieve this, and they invite us to their things, we invite them to our things, and we try to participate. Smart Scale this year was a much better process. It's part of it being imperfect. It was just lots more cooperation from all the jurisdictions with each other and with VDOT. There's always little, things we have to keep changing because Smart Scale is like fire, aim, hit, instead of aim, fire. It's always fire, and then you can run around trying to fit everything around the bullet so that it actually achieves something, which is really a crazy way, but that's the way smart scale works, because you have multiple rounds of improving a project. But staff, maintaining staff at FAMPO and our jurisdictions and state and local partners has been a challenge during the national Great Resignation. Here are the numbers. Last year, 47.8 million workers quit their jobs at an average of nearly 4 million a month, meaning 2021 holds the highest average on record, topping the 2019 average of 3.5 million, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics. That is the biggest resignation of people in one country at one time that we have on record. That is massive. And this continues in 2022. Our FAMPO jurisdictions, BDOT, DRPD, FRED, DRTC, and others, together with our rural jurisdictions, need a full complement of planning staff to take advantage of these grants and complete studies and monitor the construction and implementation of projects, which Susan will tell you, Susan from VDOT will tell you is a full-time job, just checking where every darn project is, and you know, the funding changes, or the cost goes up, or the cost goes down, or the specification has to change because they dig up something under the ground, or heaven only knows. It's a full-time job just monitoring what you already have, the irons you already have in the fire, plus you need to apply for all these new grants and put some new irons in the fire. So you need the staff to do that, and it's been a difficult 12 months. If Tim Baruti were here, I would say to him, tell us your story about your bullet wounds from this Great Resignation. It's been quite a ride. Next slide. That's all I have for you. I just wanted to try to answer that question. What am I focused on? What am I trying to achieve? Very high level, okay? But just so you can see, I'm trying to hang everything together in a logical sequence. That's why I'm trying to get a vision. That's why I want to try and then line up our policies with that vision and bring in some new policy ideas that you can vote on. And then studies, which will produce projects, and we'll apply for more funding. Hopefully, we'll get more funding, and then we'll be able to monitor the construction and implementation. We don't build anything, as you know, so we work with state and other partners who do those implementations. Sometimes the city implements their own and so on. Any questions? I'm done.
Dr. Schneider.
Chair, brief comment. One of the things that I hope the consultants listening around the room aren't mean or mad at me for this, but consultants are, you know, going to say the path to hell is paved with binders and consultants or something like that. But the reality is no one likes to hire consultants for the sake of hiring consultants. It's looked upon as a waste of tax dollars. One of the single biggest things we're seeing is new legislation coming out of the federal government. You must have shovel-ready, buildable, ready-to-go projects, and you don't get that done if you don't have the study. You can't get the state money for pre-engineering. They're now expecting us to have the study complete, the pre-engineering at least 60, 70% done, so that when we apply for projects, we're demonstrating we can spend the money. And that's just something that, you know, we're hearing this more and more and more coming from FTA or you know, the federal DOT is what are you doing to prepare? So I know we all get nervous when we hear the word more study, but that is the yeast that brings in the bread. It is now, it used to be you would apply for the money for the study, and then you would take the study and then you would go get the rest of the grant. It is not that way anymore. And I'm sure you're hearing that from your local jurisdictions. That's how Smart Scale works now. You're seeing this in a lot of different ways. So just putting that in terms of frame of where Ian's going with this, it's not his vision to hire a whole bunch of consultants because it's fun. It's because that's how you do bring in the revenue to get projects done. Significant. So a little bit of soapbox there, but it's a perspective soapbox.
Thank you, Dr. Schneider.
Disagree?
All right. Thank you, Mr. Olson. All right, moving on to the action and discussion items. 8A is Smart Scale Round 5. Ms. Barber.
Earlier this evening, the DWS board chose their preferred project. They want to move on to full application. And they would like your support this evening to endorse this for project. So there are 4 projects. They eliminated the Warrenton Road pedestrian improvements that they were considering. So what they have for you there is the US 1 Round 6, the US 1 Lake Hill Road roadway improvements, Dixon Street roadway multimodal, and Lafayette Boulevard multimodal. I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you. So, yeah, as a reminder for those who weren't here for the GWRC meeting, these are the 4 out of the 5 that GWRC selected, and they're just asking FAMPO to, authorize work for it. Do we have a motion?
Mr. Chair, I move resolution 2239.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Now moving on to 8A2, Resolution 2240, authorizing support for locality Route 15.
Likewise,
Yes.
the localities are also putting forth their smart scale applications, and they would like your consideration. Those were in your packet now, and you have not. We had, applications from each of these localities in the
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I move 2240.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? 2240 carries. Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Barber. Now on to 8B, the Safety Action Plan Grant.
This is one of those grants that I was framing for you just now in terms of where it fits. This is a grant opportunity for road safety, pedestrian and bike safety, et cetera, transit safety. The SS4A grant is for Safe Streets for All, I believe. And it's a grant which applications are open now until the 15th of September. The TAC feels that we should be making use of this opportunity, so we're looking at it. And I'm briefing you today just so that when we come to you in August to quickly approve documents, this is what it's about. I'm giving you the preamble now so that when it comes in August, you know what's going on. So there are multiple road safety grants available in the Infrastructure and Jobs Act. The Safe Streets for All is one such grant, and it works on an effective strategy to improve local road safety for all road users and supports the goals of a state's overall strategic highway safety plan. The project funding under SS4A requires an approved action plan to be in place, and you need to grasp that. We have to have a thing called an action plan before they'll give us the money to build the projects. There is a grant available at SS4A to get just what Bob was saying, funding to construct the action plan so that you can use the action plan to get the grant funding to build all the roads or sidewalks or whatever it is you want to build. Next slide. VDOT can assist with critical portions of the action plan development. So there was a $30,000 grant, FAMPO had been pre-approved, it's been cost to us, to develop a thing called a highway safety plan, which includes crash data analysis, identify high injury locations, and so on. Not VDOT at the VDOT at the district told us about this, but it's VDOT central office staff which have agreed to do this for us, create this first highway safety plan at no cost to us, and we are not supplying the labor, they're doing it for us at central office. They're going to do this anyway, whether or not we go for this additional grant, because it's part of the state's plan to do this. The federal grant, we need to have these things in place in order, in our action plan, in order to get the funding. These two are the two that the VDOT central office are doing for us as part of the highway safety plan. The ones in blue are not included, and those we have to arrange ourselves. So one of them is that we have to have a group to monitor safety efforts. But there's also research that has to be done, and we have to have a commitment either to 0 safety incidents or a substantive safety goal. And we're in a state which has chosen to not have to set 0 accidents as the goal, but working towards 0 as the goal. Right? The grant applications are due on September the 15th, and because VDOT have agreed to do a portion of it for us, we could apply for a supplemental grant to do the remainder of that action plan. FAMPO would need to use a consultant to complete the remaining portion. We would need to apply for Streets for All grant funding to complete this action plan, the remaining portions. And this, we always have to make you aware of this. If we apply for this grant and get it, there will be a requirement for a 20% local match from our local jurisdictions. We got a quote, very high level quote, in a hurry, so it'll slightly change, to do the remaining portions, and it's between $70,000 and $80,000. So 20% of that would be the local match, not a large amount of money. I put all the links in these slides. They'll go up on the website, and we'll email you a copy. TAC is recommending that we look into this as it's the key to getting annual project funding under the Infrastructure and Jobs Act for this particular grant. If you want the grant funding to put safety measures onto your road, onto your sidewalks, your bike paths, etc., you need to have this in place. So that's why the TAC is recommending this. We can't, as FAMPO, go after every grant. We're a staff of 6 maximum. So we can't go after every grant. We have to pick which grants to go after. The TAC is suggesting that we go after this one, and the jurisdictions go after some other grants that are also available. There is $1 billion in annual funding available for planning and implementing safety measures, 40% for planning and 60% for implementation on projects. The first year application deadline is this September 15th. It will then be an annual allocation every year for 5 years under this Jobs Act, which means that if we do the action plan this year, for the remaining 4 years, we can once every year apply for project funding to implement the action plan. So that's how it hangs together. Year 1, we do the action plan. Years 2, 3, and 4, we apply for widening a road or putting in safety features at an intersection or fixing a sidewalk that's dangerous, or et cetera, et cetera. That's how that works. Just briefing you so that you're aware when we come in August and say, hey, now you need to sign off on this, and there's going to be a local match of $12,000 or whatever the number is. This is what it's all about. This is what it's for. It's creating a safety plan so that we can get funding for the project money. We can get the project money to implement. Thanks, Mr. Chair. There's no decision required. It's for information purposes only tonight. But if there are any questions, I have the answer.
Thank you, Mr. Hollis. Do we have any questions at this time? All right. Moving on. Item 8C, the FAMPO Vision Survey.
Cody.
Okay.
There. So thank you all you received a vision survey to complete, and all the persons who did so. Next slide. We sent out 97 surveys, 91 to committee members and their alternates, and 6 to FAMPO staff members, and we received 63 back. So there were 9 mandatory questions and 2 optional questions. So we're going to take these responses that I'm about to go through with you and along with further research to create a vision statement for FAMPO. So in the next few months, you'll see this again. On to the results. So why FAMPO exists was question 1, and regional collaboration was the topmost choice. Might be exciting for some of you all. You'll see regional collaboration pop up again in the results. So transportation planning was second. Rural localities came down here also. Again, so these are just key words and phrases that were taken from all of your comments. So you didn't rank these. They're just the ones that popped up more than 3 times. So this is 10. The rural localities was in there about 5 times, which is a decent amount. Next slide. The future of the FAMPO region would include these things. Again, this is key phrases that came from your comments. Multimodal and transit-oriented development were the top choices here. More funding all the way at the top was the least phrased in your comments. All right.
Yeah, they want everything. They just don't want to pay for it.
And then most important solution that FAMPO should be working on, transportation was the biggest, word there. So, the things that are a little bit more blue were less chosen, but transportation was our biggest one. Thank you all for thinking.
But if you look through that, sorry to interrupt, there are some other interesting concepts there. You know, freight is an important thing that we should be concerned about. Congestion, obviously. Transit is something that was picked by lots of people. Tax, you know, all of those concepts are things that you are all concerned about and showed up in this particular question. What is the most important solution that FAMPO should be working on? Well, just working out the freight problems, transit, more pedestrian stuff, etc. All of those concepts come up in your comments.
And this is not one that I ranked, like phrases that you all chose, but just phrases in general. So the second most important solution FAMPO should be working on, accessibility for all, transit-oriented development, rural connections, more collaboration between the localities. So the big one there.
Rappahannock Crossing, multimodal solutions.
And you'll be getting this.
Each of those things came up in your comments and the other FAMPO committees.
Another just collection of your responses.
Look at the question again, build our way out of congestion. How are we going to deal with it if we can't build our way out? Well, those are alternatives that you all mentioned and that people in the TAC and the CTAC and so on mentioned. There are a bunch of interesting questions.
Yeah, so light rail, car sharing, and carpools, open easy pass lanes, traffic calming.
Bring employers closer.
Next. So when gas taxes no longer cover transportation costs, where should we find funding? The biggest was vehicle miles traveled, or the tax the weight of the vehicle, and then a different sales tax altogether, some of you thought, and inexpensive road expansion, tolls, tax areas that aren't walkable, tax electric cars, tax developers, good stuff there. So how do we integrate land use with transportation infrastructure? These were the most selected or written in your comments. So transit-oriented development, eliminate parking minimums, rezone for density and mixed use, standardize uniform proper fees, connect FAMPO to jurisdiction planning, comprehensive fees, and more communication and better relationship with developers. Then we have just a selection of your actual comments for this one, and it's just a repeat of that comment. So how do we integrate land use with transportation infrastructure, loosen density and zoning regulations, pedestrian-only areas, build the land use around the travel pattern, make developers, including corporations, more liable for offers that are restricted from being added to the price of product. So, these are just, again, a selection. Next. And this is one that you actually ranked, so not one that I chose or I didn't choose them, but, you know, so the biggest first choice for what is the most important thing for transportation planning was multimodal transportation options. We're not so concerned with the environment right now, but, you know, helping these other things will definitely address environmental concerns. Next slide. And then the last one that you ranked in the last question, what would you like to see more of in 50 years? And the largest one was transit-oriented development. I don't, you know, affordable transportation, safer cycling paths, not picked for first choice, but I would like to point out that safer roads and sidewalks, nobody chose that last. So, yeah.
And reduce congestion, full scores quite highly.
Okay. Thanks, everybody, for those of you who participated in this survey that asked for your opinion. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Duzell. Ms. Vanucci.
Quick question on how many people submitted the survey and what jurisdictions were they living in? Do you have like a breakdown? And I may have missed it.
Yeah, so we have 63 surveys out of the 97.
But out of what jurisdiction? Like how many from Stafford, how many from Caroline, King George?
Right, I actually have it compiled by committee, so which you can then find whose jurisdiction they're in. But yeah, I have that information.
So, yeah, our committees, if I can chip in there, our committees, all 4 FAMPO committees obviously have representatives from all 3 FAMPO jurisdictions. Plus there are 1 or 2 people from Caroline and King George on all of our committees. So it's you all here in the room and the similar group at the TAC, so Paul and Alex and Jamie and everybody else, and the same group at the CTAC, so I assume, Chairman, you got your survey, so all the CTAC members who represent your jurisdictions, and the same with BPAC, all the people who represent your jurisdictions at the BPAC. I, on purpose, asked for it to be anonymous, so I can't find, Toli is the only person who has the actual names of the persons she sent it out to. So I can't even tell because we wanted it to be relatively anonymous, but we only sent it to actual members and actual alternates on the 4 FAMPO committees. We might be able to segment it by
Sharpenberg,
jurisdiction if you
guys get one from CT?
I don't know who did, I did not.
We have the copy of the email sent to you, and Carly will send it to you tomorrow.
So since we presented at the CTAC previously, yes, anyway.
Yep. All right. Thank you, Coach. All right.
Mr. Schomburg, they were sent out by, I think, MailChimp?
No, I sent them out.
Individually, correct,
So
yes.
it shouldn't be in spam.
Should be an individual email from Coley's personal email address.
And the FAMPO email address.
Yep.
Send it to me.
All right. Thank you very much. Let's move on to item 8D, the fiscal year 21 through 24 Transportation Improvement Program amendments and modification. First off, the VDOT requested modifications.
So these are in your pack. We just sent you the relevant documents from VDOT requesting these. These are largely administrative modifications, so there's no particular big changes in there. It's not changing any funds that were allocated to you or not allocated to you or moving anything around. Susan's here, so if you have any questions for her, she's in the room. They're all administrative.
Mr. Chair, I'll move 2241.
Second.
Well, hold on, we're first on the VDOT requested modifications. Yeah. Well, right, okay, that's fine, because this is just directing a public comment period, just for everyone's awareness. This is a resolution directing a public comment period for an amendment to the TIP. So we have a motion, we have a second.
Sorry. So
Yes.
let me just clarify something. Number 1 are administrative modifications that were requested by VDOT, which we've done. Number 2 is new projects for which we have to have public participation, and there is a resolution to start the public participation.
Yes. Okay, but we have a motion and a second.
VDOT modifications, we pretty much have to do it because
Yes.
that's the
All
request.
right, so we have a motion, we have a second, we have any discussion?
Yeah, I have a question. So I'm just confused because
Yes.
this one says exit 140 West Stafford County to Capitol Hill, Route 4.
So
Then there's references to DC, Fredericksburg,
Yes.
Pentagon, Crystal City.
That is DRPT.
Yep.
And we have requested, DRP to give us a, update on those. And
we do.
did they give you the update?
They have, we sent it out to the TAC already. The answer to that is that these are 4 projects connected to commuter buses. The first project is that exit 133 parking lot renewal. The other 3 are the funding to fund 3 buses. They are passed through PRTC, who I think may be chosen as the implementing authority, but I think that's still under discussion. But this is DRPT effectively saying, can you please add these they will result in 3 new, commuter buses to Northern Virginia and DC. Where do the projects come from? They come from the I-95 corridor study, which you all know about. It precedes me, but I can tell you that the I-95 study recommended these 3 commuter bus routes, and I believe the CTB, the Commonwealth Transportation Board, has approved these now with funding, and so we're being asked to put these in the TIP because the funding was approved, and the 4 projects come out of the I-95 corridor study that was done some years back, and it includes the 1 park and ride lot in Stafford and the 3 commuter buses as per that particular study. So it's older news. The new news is that the CTB has finally decided to fund them. So they've requested via DRPT, via VDOT, to give us the request to please add these to the TIP.
We'll be back, ask that, prove it at the back end, is what it boils down to.
Right, so my last question, it doesn't seem like, but I've been away from FAMPO a little bit, that we typically approve buses. I mean, maybe Susan can help me a little bit, commuter bus.
I wish I could.
Bob, do you have any information?
No.
It just seems kind of odd.
So I got an email.
This comes down to adding it to the SIP. And this is, or we have to get it in the SIP for them to get them, add the money onto the project.
So I'll ask this though, I mean, to kind of follow up on Shivanti's question is, who is administering the
It's
buses?
being administered by DRPT.
The buses are gonna be by DRPT, not, okay, and they're not OmniRide buses?
No, wait, hang on a second.
Okay.
I've got an email today from Amy Garbarini at DRPT. The study designed these projects.
Mm-hmm.
The CTB funded them. DRPT now is implementing them because they have the funds. They're asking us to put them in the TIP. They have not finally selected the service provider. It's rumored that they're going to approach OmniRide and ask OmniRide to run the service. But that agreement is not yet signed. They are first asking us to put this in the TIP because they can't proceed if it's not in the TIP, and which means it has to be first in the TIP. Have I got my language right?
It has, they're trying to get it in the SIP.
Yes.
So this is where, this is the go, right,
Yes.
to the SIP.
So we put it in the TIP first so that it goes into the TIP.
Add it to the SIP.
Guys,
Can you-
I don't understand this.
Okay, fine. Whichever way around.
Yep.
The point is,
Acronyms.
that's what the projects are, that's what the money's for.
Right.
It's not our money. They've already approved
It's in
them.
our jurisdiction.
It's in your jurisdiction,
Correct.
and they want you to
Okay.
rubber stamp it. That's all that it is.
Okay, got it.
All right,
Administrative.
It's an administrative change.
Is what I call it. And it's because it is in your area. And it's pretty much just telling this area, if this is coming, that this money is gonna be spent in your area.
Yeah, I would say, yeah, the public's really gonna understand, but on that, we've got a motion and a second, right?
yes, you do.
Please vote.
Any further discussion?
No.
All those
Sure.
in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, 2241 carries, thank you.
What you voted for when you approved the I-95 corridor study, I wasn't here.
All right, item 8E, FY '21 annual listing of transportation project obligations.
So this one, everybody wants to know what it is because it seems weird, and the explanation is quite simple. This is an auditing exercise after the fact. So in other words, what this does is said, yes, this is the number of projects that you had, this is the amount of money that was spent. We've closed the financial year out long ago. We now want you just to verify that those were the projects you had. So this was money already spent in FY '21. We're just now doing the auditing at the back end. So it is merely an administrative step. Whether you do anything or don't do anything is not going to change the fact that the money was spent.
Mr. Chair, I'll move for approval of, resolution 2242.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Do we have any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries. Next up is item 8F, BPAC request for non-voting membership on the policy committee. Ms. Barber.
Okay, so, I revised the VPAC after a period of it being defunct for a few years. because of that, it does not have a representative on policy committee, even though it's supposed to be an advisory committee. It's the only FAMPO committee that does not have a way. Like CTAC, as you know, has a representative, CTAC does not. So their chair has written a letter requesting that they have a representative. The only stick for this is that you would have to revise the bylaws.
Oh, boy.
They don't want to do that.
Oh, boy.
What I'm requesting tonight is that you allow us to draft a revision of the bylaws and vote on it.
Just 2 points if I can make, because I know you'll want to talk about it. The first one is it's a non-voting member, so they don't have any power to do anything other than attend your meeting and occasionally give you a little feedback the way that the chairman of CTAC does. And secondly, it's a minor amendment to the bylaws. It's a one-liner which just says, where you say, and CTAC has one non-voting representative, so-and-so, DRPT has one non-voting representative, BPAC has one non-voting representative. You just add that one sentence onto existing bylaws. It doesn't involve a whole change of the voting structure.
Or just understanding that that's all.
Right, this seems harmless enough that if we can box it in to that and that alone.
I like to look at everything now.
We can do that
You're
too.
funny.
Do that too, but have some more fun.
All right, so Ms. Bomke.
I'm totally in favor of this. I think because people care so much about our bike and pedestrian lanes, we should have their input, and they should be able to come here and voice what they're discussing at their committee level.
Technically, according to the survey.
Right, well, whatever. But because not everybody sitting around the table is out on our trails and recognizes everything that's going on. So I would be in favor of it.
All right, thank you, Ms. Bomke. Mr. Ross.
Why couldn't they use the CTAG?
Well, it's a separate committee.
You created 4 committees at FAMPO.
Yeah.
Sort
We
of,
have 3 others that are non-voting members now?
Correct.
Who are they? CTAG,
CTAC, TAC, and.
TAC, TAC here?
Yes,
Okay, and the third?
you have a, member from DRPT that I don't believe is a voting member.
DRPT.
Just click on the website, please, under, on
Right here?
policy committee.
No, they're defensive.
They're all listed there for you on the policy
They're not.
page of the website.
Look to our CTV.
Instead of
committees.
No, just scroll, policy committee, there you go, scroll down to the bottom, the very bottom. There they all are. So, there you go, King George has got a non-voting member, Caroline has got a non-voting member, DRPT has got a non-voting member, CTB has got a non-voting member, there they all are. So you can see in there, where is the,
And how often do they come?
well,
Like how often does BPAC meet? Is it?
the CTAC chair.
Oh, Steve,
every
no,
meeting.
I mean, I haven't seen Cedric for a while.
The CTAC chair is over there, and
Well, just because that they're not there doesn't
Come
mean
to
that we
every
shouldn't
meeting.
invite the BPAC chair to sit in on the meetings as a non-voting member.
And the water.
the CTAC chair is right there, and he comes to every meeting. Unless he's ill.
It makes it easier if I just make a motion that we direction that to add a to bring it back to this meeting. Vote on it.
I think that's what the CTAC is asking for.
Yeah,
All right,
all right.
also move.
We have a motion. We have a second. All those in favor of the request for non-voting membership on the policy committee, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries. Next, item 8G, the FAMPO committee calendar. Ms. Suzelle.
We just use that to remind you of the dates, for the second half of the year, because we have no meeting in July, as you know, and no meeting in December. So that just gives you from July through to December, reminds you of the dates, and shows you where, the other committees of FAMPO occur, so that you can check for any clashes you might see. But we drafted this at the beginning of the year to avoid public holidays and all that kind of thing.
Ms. Bonte?
Has there been any discussion about bringing back, you know, obviously we're meeting today because of Juneteenth holiday. There seems to be a holiday a number of times. Are we talking about bringing the meetings back to back again?
There has not been any discussion of that, that I've been aware of lately, but.
There was a discussion at this committee, I believe, and the decision was taken about 2 months ago to just leave it as it is.
Yeah.
But, you know, it's always your.
Guys voted for that.
Okay. A meeting.
You'll find it in the minutes where you discussed it and made no
I think
decision.
it was,
What do
you
you
guys
want to
voted
do?
for. I think it makes sense to have them on the same night, but I think that this policy committee voted against that at their last meeting to include Stafford.
All right. Moving on, item 8H, Resolution 2243, approving the slate of officers to serve in fiscal year 23.
We will need you to give us the names so that we can type the official resolution. We just put blanks there because it's up to you as the policy committee.
Like Tim McLaughlin for Spot C.
Meg Bosby for Stafford.
That, agreed by everyone?
So moved.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, and our final, item, in action items 8I, resolution recognizing the dedicated service of Tim McLaughlin.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right.
Mr. Chair, we have printed a certificate which I've given to Mr. McLaughlin's colleague to deliver to him. So we have done the certificate.
All right, well, thank you, Mr. Ross, for carrying that over to.
My pleasure.
Next item is correspondence.
Coley, any other correspondence than what was in the public participation? We've not received any new correspondence, I believe, either to my office, that warrants any particular attention.
All right, well, thank you. Moving on to staff and agency reports. Yes?
I just wanted to point out that Mr. Rucker is
That should
no longer a teaching member, or finished his term, I should say. He may represent us in the, I think. Okay, so, in the July meeting, if he has not been filled by them.
Don't you think it's
But
ridiculous?
he is currently a teaching member at
I think we should change it.
All right.
And we await to hear from the governor's office who the new person is?
Yeah.
6 votes, you're 3.
The only other thing is on July 14th, we're having a public hearing for the Kensington
Now?
Clinic Bike Trail.
Yes, that's right.
Getting a lot of calls about that.
Number yet?
PWC, we're getting out on time.
All right. Thank you for that update. Do we have any other staff or agency reports? All right, moving on. Board member, chair comments. Do we have any other, comments from board members at this time? All right, well, do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved. Our next meeting is August the 15th, just to remind you all at 6 p.m. in this room.
Thank you.
TWRC.
Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All right. Those in favor?
Aye.
Maybe we can.
We are adjourned.
Enjoy the summer break, everybody, and thanks for all your assistance over the past year.